So, without further ado, shall we begin?
Absolutely. So I've read through all of this. I got this message from our late Lord Haven in my civil procedure class and just read through it all there. And it is important to keep in mind when looking at this, it is a draft. We know for a fact that certain things here have changed. But with that said, it is really interesting to see his kind of mindset in what might have changed and how things have evolved, how the garden has grown. If I've not talked about the garden too much in recent videos, I've gotten some comments about that. But as we go through here, we kind of have two main sections. We have notes for like individual characters' chapters as like little individual pieces of writing. And then the last page, the third page, deals with essentially broad outlines of what he wants to do or the big beats he wants to hit for, I think it's actually the 5 main characters that he lists in the letter in whatever year that was, 1990. In just kind of a point-by-point what they want to have happen throughout Feast. So, first character here is Daenerys. Did you read any of this?
I basically skimmed over it, the first page, very quickly when I first saw it, and then I stopped and went, okay, I'm going to send this to Quinn and check it out later. So I don't remember anything from it apart from the names on the side. So shall we? I'm looking at the Daenerys one now, right at the top.
Right off the bat, big theory confirmed. Daenerys is a horse, or at least is pretending she's a horse. First one,
I just going to have a field day with this one.
Dany, pretend it's a horse. I believe that's referring to the dragon when she's riding it in the pit, because the next is face off in the pit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she is not pretending to be a horse, as entertaining as that would be.
I was just staring at that.
No.
Divert attention away from Tyrell.
Mary, city, battle scene, I'm going home, 1 chapter. So what this looks like to me is... Initially, at some point in Martin's drafting, there was a single chapter that was what we got at Desnak's Pit. Then it goes into the Battle of Fire. It happens essentially right afterwards. And then we get the moment from like Season 6, Episode 10 of like Daenerys going home and actually leaving Meereen. All of that was supposed to be 1 chapter initially.
I mean, that's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah,
The first chapter of Feast for Crows. I don't think it's supposed to be the penultimate Daenerys chapter from Dance.
We'll get into that a little bit when we're looking at the outlines. I think this is like a later part of Feast that he's outlining for these specific chapters. Because we have the Jaime Blackfist chapter, which we have in the actual book, and then a few points later, Brienne ends with the Hound fight, which we'll get to. But he also has the outline below for Daenerys, which we can, I guess, look at a little bit now as well. Outlines 4 major points. Her marriage is kind of the starting point. Then the fall of Astapor, then the siege of Meereen with the bloody flux, and then the dragons loose at the climax, and then marriage again for 4, which is interesting.
Interesting.
So it seems like he intended to start and end Daenerys' story with a wedding.
Interesting. Let's just double check.
Does not say who the wedding is to, but I actually have a little bit of a theory on that. So I think
before we go into that,
go ahead.
I do want to quickly say it says her marriage at the start. Is that implying that's like the opening of her story, or that it's the main crux of her story? So is she getting married twice? You know, presumably Hizdahr Zolorak at the start, and then someone mysterious at the end, or is it saying that in this draft there is no marriage to Hizdahr? There's just 1 marriage, and it's at the end.
That it is driving towards,
and could be to Hizdahr.
I could read it either way. What I tend to think is that it starts with the marriage, that she is married to Hizdahr initially, and then she's married to somebody else at the end.
Okay, that's interesting. So Fall of Astapor we've seen in Dance with Dragons.
Siege of Meereen we've seen in sample chapters.
We are seeing. And then Climax, Dragons Loosed. That seems to imply perhaps in Winds the dragons will be fully let free and wreak havoc.
Yeah, we've already also seen that in the sample chapters with Rhaegon and Viserion just kind of doing whatever.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then marriage. So, who do you think, assuming it's not Hizdahr Zolorak, who could that final marriage option be, do you think, at the end of her storyline?
I have a less likely and a more likely option in mind. Less likely, at this point in Martin's drafting, Victarion was supposed to die pretty mid-early Feast. And the person who was going to come to Daenerys in Meereen was Euron, who was attempting to marry Daenerys. I think that overall that could be something that could be there. Maybe she does get married to Euron in this draft. But the thing that I think is more likely is that this kind of solidifies the idea that Tyrion convincing Jon Connington and Aegon to turn back to Westeros might have been kind of Martin convincing himself that this is the story, the way the story was supposed to go. Insofar as maybe Aegon and Jon Connington were supposed to get to Meereen. Maybe Aegon was supposed to marry Daenerys. And this thought of mine comes from this bullet point from Tyrion. Witness to incest. In one of the last chapters of Feast, supposedly. So boat sex.
Very
From
interesting.
Season 7.
Very interesting. So, Daenerys and young Griff hooking up.
Maybe as some kind of opposition to Jon. Maybe the thought would be that once they arrive on the continent, it would be them versus Jon rather than Aegon and Jon versus Daenerys, at least in this early draft version.
And if we think that young Griff is in fact a Blackfire, I do think that's very likely. Check out my young Griff video if you haven't already. Shameless plug. But would their marriage be therefore a real source of conflict?
That is an interesting
for that character, right? And they're married. They're teaming up together. They're conquering Westeros with the Golden Company and the Dothraki and Unsullied and Sellswords and so on united. But then you have this tension, this friction, this rivalry of, is this person actually my nephew? Is he actually next in line? Or is he a pretender to the throne? And so maybe, while some readers predict that the rivalry between Daenerys and young Griff will be very much, army versus army, maybe a dragon fight, something like that. Perhaps the original plan was more domestic, more of a domestic conflict. They're locked in a marriage, maybe they're ruling in King's Landing, and then Daenerys discovers the truth that he's a Blackfire, and then the story unfolds from there, perhaps.
It's also just really funny to me that, boat sex might have been a note from Martin, and they just substituted their Aegon for the correct Aegon.
It's like, how much of this is going to be stuff that we kind of recognize the echoes of in the show.
Yeah. But, I think that was definitely maybe some intention at some point.
But any other marriage possibilities?
Somebody in the chat mentioned Quentin. With both Quentin and Euron, I'm not as sure because the Tyrion witness to incest thing just... I don't know what else that could mean other than Dany and Jon or Dany and Aegon. I mean, Dany and Quentin are distant cousins, but I don't think that hits the bar in this world.
Yeah, with the context of witness to incest, I have no idea who else that could be. Because I was thinking, okay, marriage at the end... I haven't checked the rest of the notes, so Victarion? Euron?
Oh, I wish it were Victarion. Match made in heaven right there.
Don't see the incest side of that, but...
Yeah. But we've jumped around a little more than I intended there. So going back up to the top a little bit. Sam, we have a cut chapter, so maybe him getting to the Citadel was not supposed to be the end of the story in Feast initially, but we have no other details on that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you reckon
You go ahead.
Do you reckon as a POV, Sam was going to be cut completely? Sort of, let's wait until the book after where he's already at the Citadel, he's already training, and then dive into it, as opposed to maybe George didn't want to, bother writing the in-between bit where he's travelling to Old Town, but then as his writing goes on, as the books go on, they do get more and more ponderous. They do get a lot more specific, where we do see characters moving from A to B. We do see the boat journey from Eastwatch by the Sea all the way to Old Town. But yeah, maybe his plan was to completely cut Sam from this book.
That could be it. I'm more partial to the idea that it is just a single cut chapter, because I think he wants to have some elements of the Maesters of Old Town, and I think he wants to circle back to Pate at the very least, which we'll get to in a second here.
Okay.
Yeah, Jamie Blackfish chapter I think is pretty much just what it ends up being in Feast, the kind of chapter where they parlay outside of River Run.
Yeah.
And then the prologue notes.
So would this have been... I was going to quickly jump in. Would this have been Jamie's first chapter? Are these...
No, so this is... I get the impression this is not in order. We get into Cersei's
This is just ideas he's throwing out
This
onto
is
the page.
late game Dance Feast.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
this feast and
But
dance,
yeah,
I think, are initially
Blackfish
supposed to be
probably.
shorter, and because of that, these are like middle slash end of what that book would have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting that prologue is placed there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is an interesting
Also,
placement. I think it might go hand in hand with Sam's last cut chapter being the focus on Old Town.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
he also looks like he's spelt prologue without the last two letters.
Yeah, probably just abbreviation there, but it is interesting to see the Steele's book Death of Dragons. That's been a long time fan theory that is what the
Mm.
Faceless Men might
Yeah,
be
let's have a look at
after.
this. No glass can. So it says, just for people who aren't necessarily reading along with us,
Mm-hmm.
no glass candles. Then it says pate. And it says, oh, his handwriting is worse than mine. What does it say?
I'm down below. It says
Steele's
Steele's
book.
book Death of
Yes.
Dragons.
And interesting. So, of course, pate we know from the. We know that the feast prologue was written several times over, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
From different perspectives. One perspective was even from the who was it? Was it a
It was one of the serving girls at that the inn on the
Yes,
island in Old Town. I forget the name of it.
but he settled on pate, and even his pate ideas sort of jumped around, didn't they? But in the book, we ended up having, he does a little deal with someone who he doesn't realize is a faceless man, and then he's murdered with the coin, and the faceless man becomes him, takes his identity essentially. Steele's book about the death of dragons. So that is fascinating. Why would the faceless men be interested in that? Do we hear about that in the actual published book?
Yeah, we hear about the book. I think Tyrion references it while he's on the Shy Maid, and he's like coming up with all of this dragon lore to give to Griff and young Griff. So I think that the main driving force of this book, it is supposedly the only tome to contain knowledge on how to kill dragons, pretty much, or their weaknesses, or something to that effect. It's also called Blood and Fire, which Martin has said might be the name of the second half. There has been some thought, and there has been a lot of speculation by fans that this might be what the Faceless Men are trying to get in the Citadel, as we have that whole monologue in Feast about them being initially slaves from Valyria who brought death to the masters and supposedly are working against maybe the forces of Valyria reawakening in the world, like the dragons that Daenerys now has.
So how deep do you think this goes? Could it be as simple as George wants to introduce an actual tangible threat to Daenerys' dragons beyond, scorpion bolts, like in the show, right, where there's like mass producing scorpion bolts somehow, where it's like, okay, well, the faceless men will have this secret knowledge in this hidden citadel tome, and they will know exactly how to kill a dragon, and so it won't just be as easy as Daenerys with her 3 nukes flying across Westeros winning every fight, that there is an actual threat there. Or is it, I don't know, how deep can this go, and could it tie into Arya's storyline perhaps?
So my thought is, I think only one of Daenerys' dragons is probably going to survive. That's always been my read of it. I think one is probably going to be lost to the others, like we see in Beyond the Wall, hopefully less stupidly. But the other, the kind of forgot about Euron's fleet dragon, I think this is that. I think this is going to be some way that either Euron could get this knowledge, in that, like, if Euron attacks Old Town and then takes it from this Faceless Man,
Yeah.
or if it's, like, given to Euron, or if the Faceless Men just use it for themselves once Daenerys is trying to take Westeros. I think it's going to be the way that the second dragon is removed from the story, rather than, oh, there were some boats behind this rock, and they shot my dragon.
Rest in peace, Rhaegal.
Yeah, gone too soon.
Okay, that is fodder for lots of theories, because I've heard people talk about faceless men wanting to kill the dragons, and I've heard the phrase "death of dragons" before. So this is confirmation, I think, for a lot of people's theories. So that's really exciting. I'm pretty sure I saw this thread. Like, I just went on Reddit on my phone at a random point of the day, and it was like posted like 40 minutes ago, and I was like, huh, what's this about? And the moment I saw the first line, I was like, oh, this is big. This is big.
So the next two, I think, are less consequential than the ones we've done so far. We have Brienne end with the Hound fight, which I think ties into her last fight with Biter and Rorge, having the Hound helmet.
Yeah.
There's some in the comments that actually speculated that this could be something else.
Yeah, that my first instinct when I just read over that was yeah, Brienne versus Rorge wearing the Hound helmet. Because I kind of like I want to do a video about this almost called the Three Hounds of Westeros. Where
Oh,
we
that'd
have
be
Sandor
cool.
Clegane, Rorge, and Lemon Cloak, and sort of like the legend of the Hound that's developing in Westeros is really cool. But yeah, it could possibly be Brienne versus Sandor himself, and that
Season
could be
4.
inspiration for yes, the finale of season 4 where Brienne and Hound battle over basically over Arya, and then Brienne wins, and then but of course at the end of Storm, the Hound is kind of dying. He's wounded, and Arya leaves him for dead. Of course, we have the Gravedigger theory, which suggests that he was healed and rescued, and he's still alive. But I think it's more likely to be Rorge. But it is interesting how George would specifically write Hound and not Rorge. You know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
And I
I,
think
I
it,
do.
it does speak to that mythology that you're talking about, and that's an excellent video idea. Yeah, and then the
It would be
Davos thing.
interesting if it wasn't. I would just quickly say if it was meant to be a fight with Sandor, if Sandor like he's wounded, he's dragging himself up, and he gets into a. No, I don't really see. No, I don't really see what the point of that would be though. That doesn't really
Yeah, neither would I,
mean
and especially with
anything to
neither of the
Brienne,
Stark
does it?
girls nearby. I don't think that's.
Yeah. Whereas her fighting Rorge, that's a member of the Brave Companions, right? There's some connection there. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so the
Davos.
Davos stuff is also, I think, pretty inconsequential. That being that George has said in the past that Davos's story in these books didn't really take shape until he started writing it. So we have Barrington wedding, Davos to take recaptured Arya north. Where are you going to a wedding?
Ah,
So the thought on this that I'd seen
okay.
in the interpretation by the author of this post was that Davos's story initially was Tycho Nestoris's journey, so bringing the captured Arya north and interacting with Jon that way.
Okay. Okay, so I'm interested. Barrington wedding, the wedding between Ramsay and Jane Poole, aka Arya Stark, was supposed to take place in Barrington,
Oh,
wasn't
so
it?
was Davos going
But
to be
then
there
it.
for that?
You see, that's so interesting because the thing it was meant to be Barrington, but then they did it in Winterfell, and then the blizzard hit. Blah blah blah. Or they did it in Winterfell because of the blizzard. I can't remember. But yeah, why would I guess maybe he's in disguise, right? He could probably just disguise himself.
Could be.
He kind of probably just looks like a peasant with a beard.
As long as he hides his hand, he'll be
Comes
fine.
along. Yeah, I guess maybe we were meant to witness the wedding through him, and then we have Reek and Jane Poole escape, and then Davos rescues them both, and is like, "I'll take you up to the wall." Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue down.
Yeah, so John's as
Where
well,
you
I think,
going
is fairly similar to the book. Albeit there is this weird quote: "Yes, we're going to lose. I can get us the armor." I don't know what armor he's referring to. But this is essentially him saying
Valyrian steel armor.
he's going to kill Euron.
He's gonna steal the secret formula from Euron, mass-produce Valyrian steel armor, fight against the White Walkers. Oh, we were deprived in the show some Valyrian steel armor.
Just giving
Yeah,
the
I have no
Walkers
idea what that
helmets to
means.
kill them.
Yes, we're going to lose. It's interesting how he throws in like character quotes that must be in his head. That he's like, character has to say this.
And then Val carries a message Rattleshirt goes with. So I think this is initially Mance had a different mission. It sounds like maybe he went north of the wall with Val.
Ah, okay. Sending a message. Oh, perhaps to Hardhome.
Yeah, we'll get to Hardhome a little later. That comes up in John's outline at the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't read that
Yeah.
far. Yeah, the whole I can stay and look brave and you will die.
It's interesting. This is, I think, the biggest, like, just question mark for me in this entire thing. 'Cause the rest is
Yeah.
fairly, you can parse it, but this I really don't know. Oh, there's another question
Maybe
mark
he's
we'll get to
making
that's even more bizarre, but we'll get there.
maybe he's making an argument for having to flee or retreat or something along those lines where he's like, yeah, we could stay and be, heroic, or whatever, but that result in our death. I don't know.
Yeah.
I need to stop bopping my mic.
Yeah, but the next two, the Cersei and Sansa, though there is some very interesting Sansa stuff later in this, both of these are pretty much one-to-one with Feast. This is Cersei being betrayed by the Kettleblacks, and the Kettleblacks confessing that she made them do all this bad stuff. And then Sansa with Littlefinger saying that Cersei's overreached and she'll be out soon.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I
was thinking about this.
Yeah.
I was just quick to say, I was thinking about this the other day. That which specific, is it Osney? There's one specific Kettleblack that is the one who's tortured, and then reveals that he murdered the High Septon.
I believe it's Osney.
I think it's Osney.
I believe it's the youngest brother.
But we know that the Kettleblacks have always been basically like triple agents, right, working for Littlefinger, where Tyrion hired them to be double agents, but they're actually working for their father, who's a servant of Littlefinger. So I wonder whether the tortured Osney, under those conditions, would have also confessed, "Oh, I'm also working for Littlefinger."
I feel like
and whether that would affect anything
somehow at this point, or like
moving on to
or the Westerosi equivalent for Littlefinger.
Moving on to Dawn, I guess.
Yeah, this is something really cool. This is one of my favorite what ifs from this entire post. Balon versus Aerys end with blood and fire. Mountain missing teeth. So that's three pretty big things.
Oh,
yeah.
That sounds like a Chinese proverb.
I can't wrap my head around. Haiku.
That's it. But... Haiku.
End with blood and fire. We have that's the end of the Arion story and Feast. Balon versus Aerys is awesome, and I think that's initially how Aerys was supposed to die, right?
Oh, I imagine so. Balon, Sir Balon Swan of the Kingsguard, coming down to deliver the Mountain's head, I suppose. Oh, I think I get it. He's coming down to deliver the Mountain's skull, and then, of course, you have the whole Aerys Ariane conspiracy. They're like, no, you must stop. We have Balon and Aerys fighting. Not necessarily the death of Aerys, because I don't know if you've heard this, but one of the older ideas for Feast was that Sir Boros Blount would die of a heart attack or something and be replaced by Robert Strong, but Aerys Oakheart would still be alive, which may imply that the Balon versus Aerys fight would result in Aerys losing but not dying necessarily.
You know what I think? I think that Aerys Oakheart's story is full of parallels to other Kingsguard, specifically during the Dance of the Dragon. And I think this duel between two Kingsguard, without spoiling things for House of the Dragon, might have a similar outcome to another duel between two Kingsguard during that era. If you catch my drift.
Yeah. But yeah, interesting parallels there to those Kingsguard you're talking about, but also, I guess, Criston Cole in terms of Aerys the Queenmaker.
That's like the first times we hear a lot about Criston Cole is a lot in Aerys's internal monologue during his single chapter.
It is a shame we don't see more of Aerys, because that one chapter is very out of place, isn't it? That we just get a one chapter for someone who
I do love the writing in that chapter. Like Martin always says, like the human heart in conflict with itself, and that's like the chapter for that.
Yeah. I would have rather we kept Aerys and maybe lose to Aeryo.
How dare you? I am.
But then, of course, you miss out on. You miss out on the stock footage that Aeryo provides. So
exactly.
I don't know.
And then the mountain missing teeth.
Mountain missing.
It's meant as like a signal, like there's supposed to be evidence that this isn't the right head.
Yes, I do wonder. Like, is it meant to be? We've delivered a giant head, and they're like, okay, well, it's missing all of its teeth. I don't know. It's not like they could do forensics or anything. Does it mean like missing a few teeth? Could it be a weird like?
I think
like
it's
Qyburn needed a few of the Mountain's teeth for something, or I don't know.
I think it's meant to be a tip off, because I think they have recountings of Oberyn's death and the fight that led to it, but they don't have like. They know that he wouldn't have knocked out any of the Mountain's teeth, and I think that it's just meant to show that like this is just some big guy who they decapitated.
I see.
Poor guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I see the name Kevin, which is taking me by surprise.
Kevin, home to Casterly Rock. Ready for winter.
Ready for winter. So this isn't an epilogue. This isn't the epilogue chapter. this is a Kevin. Have we? Is this the first time we're finding out that George planned a Kevin POV that wasn't an epilogue?
Kevin has had some
that was like
some
an actual
weird shit in previous drafts as well. So this is a very early draft, being from 2003, 2004. Kevin was supposed to go missing for a point for like a lot of the drafts.
Oh, yes.
I think this is
Yes,
just
I
prior
remember.
to coming up
What
with
was that about?
So I think it was
Did we ever find out why?
the speculation. I think it was either. I think the speculation either came from the last G-Steph post or one of the Preston Jacobs videos on it. But the main speculation that I agree with is that Kevin was initially supposed to be captured by the Brotherhood under Lady Stoneheart.
Ah,
Or at least he'd been like traveling around and trying to do something and then gotten captured. But it's unclear exactly like where Martin was going with that. I think that maybe at that point Kevin would have been the kind of cheese in the mousetrap to get Jamie to engage with Stoneheart rather than Brienne.
oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Kevin's had a lot to.
And then we have
Then we have Tyrion both.
Then we have the sentence. Yeah, we were talking about witness the incest, which most likely, according to you, Daenerys and her alleged nephew, Aegon Targaryen, connecting, having sex, Tyrion witnessing it. I remember Peter Dinklage saying some stuff, right, during season 7 and 8, and basically implying that Tyrion was in love with Daenerys, like in behind the scenes stuff.
I remember that.
Even though that never came across on the screen. But based on what Peter Dinklage said, it was probably in the script, but he was playing it as Tyrion like had fallen in love with Daenerys, basically. So maybe it's like maybe there was a similar thing. Where his Tyrion would sort of latch on to Daenerys and become obsessed with her, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe he would, because we know he's going to be the evil twisted dwarf dripping poison into her ear, right? Like the evil villainous hand figure that everyone expects him to be, and so he becomes. Perhaps it would be him who'd be the driving force, that wedge between Daenerys and Aegon if they did marry.
Yeah.
Sort of being like, I don't know. Witness to incest is just a very odd
It is, and it's
way
vague.
of phrasing
like,
it.
I'm racking my brain for other people who are related in the situation that Tyrion is currently in. It's like, in this draft, both Victarion and Euron were supposed to be there. I don't think that's what this is referring to. And I know there's also a theory that, like,
you never know.
maybe Penny and Tyrion are related, which I don't personally buy at all. I could see someone using this as...
Why would it be...
What would it be witness to?
But the
it's
phrase...
not like he'd be witnessing himself.
Yes. Yeah. Very weird.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, this
let's move on to...
The last one
let
is
me...
the big question mark for me. Prince of Sorrows. Sounds like he wanted to do...
Okay.
We've heard for so long that there's this chapter with Tyrion and the Shrouded Lord that was cut. That was just such a big thing in development that Martin had for so long, had so many ideas for, but ended up getting completely cut. And it looks like from this, it might have been from the point of view of the Prince of the Sorrows, of the Shrouded Lord.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's go through point by point. Like I said, this is my first time going through it, so let me see if I put these things together. So first off, it says, eases psychic pain, 2 question marks. That's such a comfort, question mark, prophecy, question mark. That is so vague. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So my read on those ones specifically is that, like, I think this comes about before there's a John Connington point of view. And I think Martin wants to say something about what it's like to have grayscale to that extent, what the mind does. And maybe there's some element of prophecy in there revealed to those who are that far gone.
I wonder what comfort means.
Maybe it's like that... I don't know. Like, I'm picturing him doing something to, like, relieve the agony that I'm sure he is in from this disease, but I'm not sure exactly what.
And then, in quotation marks, whorehouses and whores go everywhere. Obviously, that links to Tyrion's that running motif in Tyrion's storyline where he's going around asking everyone and asking himself, where do whores go? Where is Tysha? Where is my first love? Where is my first wife? So it must be maybe Tyrion continues that conversation with the Prince of Sorrows.
Yeah.
It looks like potentially that maybe Tyrion asks, where do whores go? Because he asks that to every character. And the Prince of Sorrows' response is just, whorehouses, perhaps.
Yeah, whores go everywhere.
And then, yeah, they go everywhere. Courage, let it. So this is an interesting phrase. Let it go, or it will become you. Let them go, will not bring you peace. Pain will, and then the attempt to kind of translate the bad handwriting says it may say keep.
Yeah,
or something.
The
Pain will
transcript says keep.
Blank you what you have to do.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because when I think about like this perspective chapter with the Shrouded Lord, I didn't expect him to be like this wise figure counseling like caution and restraint and like be careful or you're going to destroy yourself and everything around you to Tyrion.
It feels like a turning point for Tyrion's character. It feels like this is where he reaches the crossroads, and this character is the one who is almost like a temporary angel on his shoulder. Again, there are lots of theories that the Shrouded Lord, if this is the Shrouded Lord, is actually his uncle Geryon Lannister, right? And they have that, so they have that blood connection. They know each other. It could be that he's saying, listen, you're driven by revenge and your hate. Let it go. Let everything go. Revenge will not bring you peace. Go down a better path, and then Tyrion will almost be deciding, will he sort of become a better person, I guess, and let his hatred and so on go, or will he go down the dark path? Considering George has talked about Tyrion's story being a villain origin story, it does feel like he's naturally going down that villain path. But like I said, this could be a crossroads, or this could be something that would have come into play later on in the story, where perhaps Tyrion has a heel turn and realizes he's made a mistake, right? And perhaps his story ends with him trying to make up for the suffering he has caused, and maybe this chapter, this moment, comes into play later on in this story. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think it's confirmed that Shrouded Lord equals Elsa, generally, just for all of the let it goes. But I think that it is really interesting to see just how this character
It took me like
exists
5 whole seconds to work.
exists in Martin's just mind, because like I never expected that like the Prince of the Sorrows, the Shrouded Lord, maybe he's just like a chill dude. Like this doesn't seem like he's that bad of a hang. I think it's interesting to have him be the kind of voice of reason for Tyrion, where we typically think of stone men as just like completely gone.
In my head, personally, I've always thought of a chapter involving Tyrion and the Shrouded Lord as not being this scary, creepy thing where this like monstrous like king of the stone men is like talking to Tyrion, and it could be like high levels of threat and so on. Because I really like the idea that Geryon is the Shrouded Lord. So when people theorize about that chapter, in my head, I've always seen it as a nephew and an uncle meeting after a long time.
I've always seen it as, that I just realized? I've always thought of it as Riddles in the Dark, the Hobbit chapter. That's just how it's existed. Just like
interesting.
Tyrion and Gollum
so a lot creepier, a lot nastier. That's interesting. But that wraps up the second page, and now we have one more page, which appears to be an overview of the stories, and then there are numbers next to it, which I guess implies number of chapters.
Yeah, this is the interesting part, or the Sansa stuff specifically is super interesting, but we'll get there. So, Arya, end with her first gift, 1, joy of giving, crossed out, 2, mercy at the gate. 4 chapters.
Interesting. Okay. And end with her first gift. Is that implying her overall storyline ends with that?
Yeah, I think it's saying that, like,
yeah.
I think it's saying that the Feast Dance storyline for Arya is supposed to end with her mercy chapter. The preview chapter for the Winds of Winter. And that is
her
both
first gift
kill as a faceless man, and it is her giving the gift.
So joy of giving sort of implies basically learning about faceless man custom, I guess. The idea of giving the gift of death. But the crossed out money at the gate. Not money at the gate. Mercy at the gate. What gate?
My only thought was the Bloody Gate, but I don't know. I mean, I guess Braavos isn't far from the Vale, but I don't think she would have any reason to go there. The gates of the city.
Yeah, I kind of assume that these 4 chapters are meant to be, okay, this is her training montage, right? This is her training to be an assassin. Like, I don't think it would be just 1 chapter and then she yeets.
This is a kind of a reach, but maybe the gate was like a name of the play initially, the Bloody Hand play.
Ah.
Because that's where that final murder occurs in Bravos. But I've also seen people say like River Run Gate, which is interesting. Gate to Hell.
Gate to Hell. Because I feel like if it's River Run or The Veil or something, then it implies that there's 1 chapter of her in Bravos, and then she just immediately leaves, which feels super rushed.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the case.
I want some chapters of her, mopping the floor. Come on, George.
Wax on, wax off.
I want to see her mopping and not doing anything.
She's cleaning the kindly man's car.
So, 4 chapters. So then the next overview is for Tyrion, which is 5 chapters. So now that I'm looking at it, so I is 1, end with her first gift.
You're right
Tyrion,
about marriage.
Cliffhanger with Dany.
Your read of marriage.
Yeah,
that's
so
correct.
Daenerys is the final thing. Yeah. So her big marriage at the end. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So cliffhanger with Daenerys. So it seems like his plan was the final Tyrion chapter is he meets Daenerys, and then it's like boom, end of the book, which would have been awesome. And it does confirm that Tyrion will eventually meet Daenerys, which we kind of knew would happen anyway, right? Because of the show and where Tyrion is currently going. But captured by Sejora, yeah, we see that in the book, in Dance. Chapter 1, the Sorrows. Remind me.
Isn't that like the ruins of Valyria, if I recall? I think, or near there. I'm not sure. I'm blanking.
Oh, of course, Prince of Sorrows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're there.
There we go.
But
there we go.
It's also, I like the double meaning there, in that's kind of the lowest part of his arc, where he's like the most depressed.
Interesting that. Okay, yeah. Oh wait, wait. I'm trying to remember.
Somebody in the chat actually.
Is this supposed?
Interesting about Arya, that being that isn't the theater where she meets Polliver called the Gate or something like that.
Is it? Let's do a little bit of research. So
yeah, I'm gonna look this up too.
I'm gonna get there before you. Yes, the Gate is a Mama's Playhouse owned by Isambaro in Bravos. Perfect. Nice one. I thought so.
In the chat. Would be well done.
Shout out to my boy Willie. Too good. Yeah, no, I didn't. There's no way she would have left Bravos after just 1 chapter, so that's incredible. Cool stuff.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was important to note.
Another thing I wanted to quickly say was, is this meant to be after a 5-year time skip? Because earlier on I said he scrapped it and then he was going to do Feast, and then Feast turned into 2 books, Feast and Dance. But I'm not entirely confident about whether this manuscript was written before or after the time skip. Is this meant to be after the 5 years?
I think
after he had scrapped the 5 years. I genuinely can't tell.
It. Because from interviews with him, he says he spent a year working on the time skip book, on what it was going to be. That year would have been 2000 to 2001. This is 2 years after that.
I was going to say, yeah. Yeah, a 2003 outline where he's outlining the story does feel weird, right? Where it's like, haven't you been working on this? But of course, he was working on that previous time skip. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I don't think Tyrion's journey to Dany would have been something that he waited 5 years to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's why it ended up falling apart, the 5-year time skip.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Tyrion's story begins in the ruins of Valyria.
Yeah. Albeit, there are only 4 bullet points there, and it says he's going to have 5 chapters, so maybe it's like a chapter to get there, is my read.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe he was like writing down the ones where he has the most solid idea of.
I think so. Or just beats he wants to hit, even if they might happen in different chapters.
So the next one is Volantis. So in Dance, he does reach Volantis. Isn't that where he's captured, right?
Yes, it is.
I draw it, yeah. And then crossed out are 3 and 4. 3 says 3 is called the Sun.
Actually, no.
It's the Sea.
The Sea.
I thought he said that. Are we sure? Because the sun makes me think Aegon, right?
When this was initially posted, like when you sent it to me, the transcript said the sun, but it has since been amended to the sea, and the consensus in the comments seems to be the sea.
There's a picture on the Reddit thread for those. Again, if you're not looking at the Reddit thread for this, check out the description. There's a picture of like the way he writes letters, like lowercase and capital,
it's
all put next to the alphabet. This is insane.
This is some
okay, so it's
Zodiac
the
puzzle
sea.
shit, but
Yeah, this is some David Fincher shit. Wait, where was I? There we go. Okay, so if it's not the sun and it is the sea, then
which makes sense. He's just,
I guess that's
he's
just
traveling on the sea with Jorah to get to Dany.
Yeah,
like season 5.
And then what was number 4?
4 is Dany.
Dany, okay. Why are those crossed out, I wonder?
I don't know. Maybe he realized that it was not. They were not going to get there in time. That there wasn't enough space in the book or something. We'll get to a lot more crossed out in the next one, which is Sansa.
Yes, because we've already looked at Daenerys, so let's move on to Sansa.
Yeah.
Question mark old.
This one is interesting.
Question mark old. Resolve to be SS and take North.
Sansa Stark.
So that seems to be the conclusion of her story.
But it's interesting. Look at it.
It
starts with the Winds of Winter preview chapter. This is the part that is getting into like pure Winds material. Because the first one is Tourney of the Winged Knight, which is the first preview chapter. We haven't even gotten there yet.
Oh, this is an interesting one, because I've not seen this one before. I'm like,
This is the golden nugget at the bottom of this river here.
Okay, so Tourney of the Winged Knight, Sweet Robert Arryn wants to hold a tourney for basically to have his own Kingsguard, but he wants there to be 8 Winged Knights instead of 7, because he wants one more than the king, which is kind of funny.
Good for him.
And there are lots of theories about what will go down there. So Tourney of Winged Knight would presumably be the chapter that introduces Harold Harding, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But he's not mentioned here at all. And the second
he's not mentioned, actually.
Is interesting.
What does that one say?
It says it's crossed out.
Oh, no.
It's crossed out, but it says Sweet Robin hunting wabbits. Sweet Robin either weds or woos. I think it says weds.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, so now this has me confused about time skip stuff.
I mean, she could marry an 8-year-old.
Sweet Robin.
If Tyrek Lannister can marry a baby, Sansa can marry an 8-year-old.
That is true, but also the fact that at the very top it says question mark old. Resolve to be SS and take the North. It seems to imply he's like, she will be older, but I'm not sure how much. You know what it could be?
I think question mark old explains why we don't get this till the Winds of Winter. I think that this is...
She's not old enough.
I think he put a pin in all of this and just invented a story for Feast and Dance for Sansa. So I think this is just a look ahead.
This is an old idea. He's not sure whether he wants to keep it.
Yeah.
I thought it might be related to her age. Like, by the time she's X years old, resolved to be... Which kind of just makes me think... He scrapped the time year 5 skip, but maybe he intended Feast to be a story that takes place over several years itself, right? Because that's what he wanted to do with this whole series. He wanted a trilogy that took place over decades, and the most time passes in the first book, right? Like over 6 months pass in that first book, and from all the other books, it's like about a year passed in that first book or so. But all the other books are like every chapter is basically happening after the previous one, and it's like only a few months have passed, right? Unlike the show where they kind of make it canon that it's years passing between each season kind of thing, or 1 year per season. But moving on, so Sweet Robin weds, that implies Sansa and Sweet Robin marrying, right?
Tyrion witnesses.
Tyrion ends up in the Vale, he's like, oh god, hey, that's my wife.
He is technically married to Sansa, yeah.
Hands off my wife. Okay, so... Considering Harry the Heir is not mentioned, that does make me believe that his original plan was have Sansa marry Sweet Robin, then you have the whole uniting the North and the Vale as part of Littlefinger's plan, and then retaking the North, blah, blah, blah. But what is point 3? Point three
is an
is
interesting one.
news from WH.
Do you know what WH is?
WH. Give me a clue.
It's a place. It's not far from where Sansa
It's a place,
currently is.
not a person.
It's a place, not a person.
Oh, White Harbor.
White Harbor.
White Harbor.
And what news comes from White Harbor?
News from White Harbor. News
What
from
news?
Wyman Manderley, perhaps.
News
Also
of
WM.
someone's re-arrival, perhaps.
Perhaps a certain Stark.
Perhaps a certain little brother.
Interesting. I see. I like. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this is the
I
best
made a
insight
dumb
we've gotten
comment
on the
being like,
Davos story in like a decade.
before we jump into that, I'll quickly say you completely missed me saying, or it could be Wyman Manderley because I misread the H's and M and then realized how stupid that was.
Oh, I did completely miss that.
was like, wait.
But you are accidentally
I was like,
correct.
wait, no, White Harbor. White Harbor, ignore me. But yes, so news from White Harbor, which means that his plan was for Wyman Manderley to basically be like, hey, Sansa, guess what? Your brother's alive. I have him. Maybe the original plan was that he had him, right? He had hold of him. There wasn't a Scargos thing.
But
I have
then-
him. Your brother's alive. Come
throws an
over
interesting
and
wrench
help
in the
restore
plan.
him.
That's so the structure of how Martin has written this plan is so cool, and I love it because at this point we get this news from White Harbor after supposedly Sweet Robin is wed, probably to Sansa, and she is resolving to take the North back. She is going to rule the North, she thinks, or her and Robin, but no, her brother's back all of a sudden, and there might be
Yeah.
conflict.
Yes. I wonder how that was going to play. Because, again, the thing at the top says, the overall point of the story, how it ends, is resolved to be Sansa Stark and take the North. So I think it becomes a kind of, I will help my brother take the North with the help of Sweet. And then, but then, of course, we have,
Not crossed out.
yes, because Sweet Robin wedding, presumably Sansa, and news about Rickon, both of them, boom, crossed out. He's not sure about them. But then we have the words "kill the mouse."
If
which
you've been
is
watching on
super.
my end, this is why I've had Shadrick's wiki article open for this entire time in another tab. The Mad Mouse,
is so
who we see pop
interesting.
up in Feast.
Short king, 5 foot tall,
Yep, we love him for that.
5 feet tall.
But he's one of the knights hunting Sansa, and the thought is that I've heard some people speculate that he's a Varys agent. Have you heard this?
I think I have. I think I have actually. Because doesn't he bring up the fact that Varys asked for like a big bounty for Sansa?
Yes, and also I think Varys's like older network of spies who were like children in his service were like the mice or something to that effect,
Oh,
or his mice.
yes. Because I literally did a video about like Varys Illyrio and young Griff a couple of weeks ago, and when I was researching, I was like, oh yeah, in Westeros he has his little birds. When he was a spy master in Pentos, he had his little mice. So is Shadrich the Mad
was
Mouse
the
perhaps
mice.
a former mice?
I think that's it.
A former informant?
This shows that he might try to like steal away with Sansa
cool.
at some point.
This
Maybe-
is mind-blowing.
You know what I think it's going to be? It's going to be a
What is it?
parallel to Catelyn and the Cat's Paw.
Of a good parallel. Catelyn and the Cat's Paw.
Yeah, in the first
Oh,
book,
I
trying to
see.
defend Bran, and then did she kill him? Or
But instead of getting
Direwolf?
saved by... No, a direwolf comes in. Summer saves the day. Instead of Summer, it'll be Sweet Robin jumping in and biting his neck.
That's
Like
it.
a feral dog.
Yeah, or it could be the
Then
the
curling up
fanfiction
in the
around,
bed.
like maybe it's the Blackfish shows up or something.
Could be Lothar Brune.
Could be
He's a cool guy.
Bronze Young.
I'm so interested. So, yeah, I've often thought, what is the point of the Mad Mouse? Because if he is there to basically kidnap her and take her to Varys, it completely derails the Vale plot. But if he's not successful, it's like, what's the purpose? And here, George's plan is to kill him, but he has to be there for a reason. It can't just be there is someone who wants Sansa. So it must be perhaps he prematurely reveals Sansa's true identity to get the plot going, or is it just another element of like danger and threat to insert into her story so that the reader doesn't get too doesn't get lulled into a sense of security, where it's like, oh no, someone's after her.
My read of it is that it's her like actually having to come to defend herself, is my thought. And I think it's kind of the idea that no matter how much she tries to hide, she really can't escape the past or who she is. And
maybe
that's
what
herself to some degree.
That strengthens her resolve to become where she's like, okay, I need to embrace that I am Sansa Stark, because I'm always going to have people looking for me, even if I think I'm safe. I'm not safe. I can't just hide here. And as much as I want to be Elaine Stone because it's pretty chill and calm and better than King's Landing, I need to embrace who I truly am and take the North for Rickon and House Stark, perhaps. Yeah. Interesting. That is super. That link to Varys's little mice is that in the comments, or did you suddenly remember that? The link between the Mad Mouse and the fact that he's working for Varys, and Varys used to have little mice as part of his spy network in Essos. Did you remember that, or was that a theory that existed?
I remembered that.
So this is your theory?
Oh, no.
That the Mad Mouse could literally
This is like a video that I watched like years ago that I think it might have been a Preston Jacobs thing where he was talking about like Varys agents.
Probably.
Agents, but I remember agreeing with that part specifically. But that was something from the depths of my subconscious that I had forgotten until I saw the Mad Mouse mentioned.
Okay, this is going to feel... I almost feel like this
analysis theory video on this, it is going to be about the Sansa section here, because this is something. I myself might do like a fun short little animated video, basically being like, this was his plan for Feast. Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be cool.
And then throw in some little thingies. That could be fun. I don't know how successful that would be. It's a bit of a niche topic, but I'll go for it. Why not?
Yeah. And then we have one final note.
We do. Jon. End with Hardhome.
Pretty simple.
This has got me thinking, though.
I think he was supposed to die at Hardhome, right?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe if his plan was for Jon to die in this book, maybe it was he dies at Hardhome and he's resurrected in the next book. But yeah. So the by end with Hardhome, are we saying we end with the letter from Hardhome, or we end with him going to Hardhome, which could explain where D&D got that idea from for season 5, where the original plan was Jon goes to Hardhome, then out of Scrap, but they were like, oh no, we've got to keep that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's got to be that.
That's cool.
I think it adds an interesting element to if that's where he is killed. Maybe he does like come back as a white or something, or I don't know.
That is, it's so fascinating.
It really is. Yeah, this is everything here is just.
I'm not gonna lie.
This is like the most information we've gotten. I think the person who wrote this post said at the top, this is like the most information we've gotten since like G-Steph, or even since like The Forsaken. But like, I put this on the level of a new sample chapter in terms of just like interesting stuff to examine. Like I said, it had only been posted for like less than an hour, so I couldn't read the upvote, so I was just like, it's a post, but it said outline, and I was like, something's drawing me to this, and I was like, oh boy, I don't depress anyone who's watching, but I have a feeling that this could end up being the closest thing we get to the Winds of Winter. Hey, we still gotta
like knowing what's going to happen in Winds.
I think we'll still get something resembling Winds at some point. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been a really fun discussion. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, be sure to subscribe to Fantasy Haven's channel. He really appreciates it, and it's linked in the description. Check out this post for yourself as well while you're down there. It's really interesting, and I highly suggest you read it. I will be back with more typical videos, more in-depth analysis in the future, but I thought it'd be fun to just post a bit of discussion and see what you all think. I'm excited to hear many, many thoughts about these really interesting findings.